What up, y'all? We're back again today. I have our sales manager, Nick, on the YouTube. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
Nick just came back from vacation, and he is a very lucky guy. Can you tell me what happened in Mexico?
On the run from
Or is it top secret?
The fugitives were fugitives. No, it's not top secret. It's people got in trouble.
People that he was with got in trouble for doing a little bit too much
drinking
and dancing and partying, and they partied on somebody's girlfriend.
Oh yeah, they did.
Or wife.
Yeah. I think that's
So anyways, we got Nick here today. Nick's been responsible for multi-seven figures as a sales manager, and we're going to talk about the 5-step sales process to literally sell anything you want. So first step, we're going to start with the intro. And I always say, I think a lot of people overlook the intro because it's like walking into a restaurant that no one tells you anything. They don't greet you and they don't tell you what you're supposed to do, and you're kind of just standing there confused. And so though intro is one of the first things, I think it's the easiest things, I think it's one of the most overlooked. And what you want to do in the intro is you just want to introduce yourself, let them know who you are, let them introduce yourself, and so you have that first connection. Anything you want to add there? There's really not much to it, but
yeah. Then I'd say setting the tone for the call is really important as well. So like after you do the introduction, like if you're in a restaurant, like hey, it's a seat yourself kind of situation, pick what you want, or it's like hey, I'll take you to you want a booth, you tell them what's going to happen, and then you proceed with that. 100%.
So intro is really short, sweet. Just don't miss it. If you miss it, it's going to come off wrong. The second part is discovery, and this is where you are going to try to figure out what the client, the potential client, the prospect is going through, where they are, what they've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and ultimately where do they want to go? What is their goal? And this is step 2, discovery. And what do you think the key to discovery is, Nick?
I think the key is you can handle a lot of things that you know are going to happen later in the call in the data by asking the right questions and then holding them accountable to that later. So when you're getting the data, if you ever are concerned or don't know what kind of questions to ask to get deeper, or you're having troubles with people giving you too many objections at the end or dipping at the end, it usually comes from that data part of the call. So if you can just think about what someone could potentially tell you or say to you at the end of the call, you ask those questions up front.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think the game of sales is like overcoming objections and saying all the right things at the right time at the end, and it's really not that. A lot of objections are handled at this phase. What are some questions that you're asking during this discovery phase? Give me just some examples.
Yeah, I think in general, like a lot of people will get the objection to think about it at the end, just in any industry, any niche. And so one way that you can handle that up front is you can ask a couple different questions. So you can ask the question of, well, why now? Like, why are you looking to get this started today? And like, why not last year? Why not in the future? You can also ask what type of time frame are you looking to have this done in? And that's up front, so there's no money involved with it. So they're not really concerned with like telling you they want to wait. It's their actual truth. And so at the end, when they're like, hey, I want to think about it, you're like, oh, that's totally cool. You can definitely go do that. I'll even set up a meeting in the future. But earlier, you said that you wanted to do this today because of this reason. So what changed?
Yeah. So just getting really the entire scoop on where they are, what they want to do, why they're even on the call. And that way you can put together a solution that is adequate. You never want to try to help someone if you don't know their issues. And I think a lot of rookie salespeople do that. They're just asking questions because it says it on the script. A lot of companies have scripts or they have frameworks that they operate on and they're just asking these questions because that's what it says to do. If you truly need to find an issue and then deliver a solution. And that takes us to our next step, which is presentation, where you actually deliver this solution to them and you go over the product or service that you're selling. One of our favorite things is keeping this presentation really short and not making it over the top with data and just throwing up on the prospect, where you're just telling them all these things. You want to keep it really short and concise. And how do we do that, Nick?
3 main points, typically. I think a lot of people do this as well, but it's going to be 3 main pillars, and then you just use 3 little anecdotes, like 3 little stories that anyone can relate to, and most people have had even experience, because the name of it is like, you want them to switch their mindset. You don't want to have to convince them or try to get like a aha out of them. It's like through the stories, it changes their mindset and sets them up to close later.
Yeah. So you really want to choose 3 things to keep it, you're not going on all day. The 3 main pillars that your product or service provides or does. And that way you can keep it short, sweet. And usually by this point, the discovery section, that actually lasts probably the longest if you do it right. If you're truly asking questions that, and get the answers that you're looking for, that lasts the longest. The presentation can be very quick. You're going over the 3 things. And then what we're transitioning to is we're going to transition to the test close. And what's the purpose of the test close, Nick?
You want to think of it kind of like getting married. Like, you would ask a girl to marry you if you weren't for sure that, or at least 80-90% sure that she's going to say yes, because it's embarrassing. Same thing with closing. You don't want to ask for a close if you're not sure that they're going to do it, or at least be open to it. So the test close is to test like the warmth of it and see if they're ready to go or not.
Yeah, it reminds me, last night my wife Chloe was cooking, and she put some salt in the water, and she tasted it. She was cooking rice, and she put some salt in the water before she boiled it. She tasted the water. I'm like, why are you tasting the water? She's making sure it's not too salty. And that's kind of what you're doing. You want to make sure that you're in a position that is, your client is in a position that's ready to close, because the next step we're going to the close, and you don't want to try to close someone on something that they're not 100% on. And so that is the purpose of the test close. And now we'll go to the last part, the 5th step, which is simply the close. This is where you're going to collect the money, you're going to overcome objections, and you're ultimately going to exchange the value. What do you think the biggest tips they could get from you on the close?
Well, let's take 2 forms of it. There's just the logistical close, and there's the objections. Ideally, if you have a good demo, then you have no objections at all, and they're just like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And then the biggest tip I could...
How frequent is no objections? Depends on what you're selling, for sure. But
yeah, I mean,
higher ticket, it's very frequent to get none. It's rare you get absolutely none. There's usually some questions or something that comes up, but it can happen. It happens. We've seen it happen if you do it right.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest thing is, if there's no objection, like, you want to have a flow that you follow that isolates it down to money, because that's going to be like the only thing. And a lot of people think money's an objection. It's usually not. They just want to, if they want to do it, then you need to just logistically make sure it makes sense for them. And so I'd have a flow that allows you to collect the most money possible, that also eliminates the other objections initially. But if there are objections, the biggest advice I could do is that you want to make sure you isolate it, and then you're not trying to handle the objection. You're not trying to solve that. That's not the point. You're trying to switch their mindset and let them see that it doesn't make sense not to do it. Usually you have to do that with stories. So I'd have lots of stories available for every single objection you can have. And then that way you're not going into like, oh, you said this, I'm going to say this. It's like, oh, do I feel that? Let me tell you about someone who did that as well. And then what happened with them.
Right. Exactly.
And then asking them for the close again after that.
Exactly. We got some road ragers out here.
Got some honking.
But that's it, y'all. We're going to keep it short, sweet, simple, quick interview with my boy Nick, our sales manager, and also just going over the 5-step sales process. It's time to get Chipotle. I'm hungry. You're hungry. We're all hungry.